Hello, folks, and welcome to another edition of Just Fish Outdoors.
I'm your host, Dale York, and I designed Just Fish Outdoors to focus on lakes and streams and provide information, tips, and techniques, along with how-to segments for catching everything from crappie to catfish. We will also provide tips on equipment, tackle, boating, and much, much more. All of this is aimed at helping you catch more fish and have fun doing it. So grab a cup of coffee, a comfortable chair, and that brings us to our special segment. Folks, as I travel around and meet folks, one of the most often asked questions is what's the best rod and reel for a beginning angler, or what kind of rod and reel should I choose for a specific application? In today's show, what we're going to try to talk about is the three main rod and reel groups, and that would be spin casting, spinning, and casting. And we're going to try to point out some of the advantages and disadvantages, and typically what these applications of these specific categories are used for, and try to help some people out there that may be listening that are trying to decide on which particular rod and reel to purchase, where they need a spin casting, where they need a spinning, where they need a casting. And what I've done, I've brought along today my brother Brian on the show, and we're going to talk about these three different types of fishing gear and hopefully help you make some decisions as far as purchasing. We'll start out with the spin casting gear. As the name implies, it's kind of a hybrid between spinning and casting. This type of fishing gear is most common for the beginning angler, and some of its advantages are it's really got a most friendly budget, easiest to cast, requires a minimum experience to operate. It does have some multi-species applications, some flexibility with different rod selections, and can be used to cast lightweight lures. To give you a little history on the spin cast, the spin cast reel was first produced back in the 1950s right here in Oklahoma by some of the companies that somebody may know of as Zebco, and they've been producing these things right on through present day. Spin cast reel, they've estimated over 40 million of these things sold, so they're a very common reel. And like I said before, they're very commonly used for beginning anglers. Don't you agree with that, Brian?
Oh yes, definitely. Spin cast reels are by far the easiest to use, the easiest to learn to use. They require virtually no maintenance whatsoever for the angler, which is another plus. Wide variety of applications and uses. You can catch everything from perch to catfish on these things.
Yeah, most spin cast reels, one of their limitations is in the size available, how much line they'll hold, and what size line they'll hold. These things are commonly built and manufactured in a 4 to 12 pound line class. I've seen some in earlier years go up to 15 and 20, but that's not a common selection. Most models can be either right or left hand retrieve. There's several different manufacturers to choose from. And, it's probably, like I said, one of the lowest price points as far as purchasing fishing equipment that you can get into. This type of reel and rod combination would be my recommendation for the beginning angler. Wouldn't it also be yours, Brian?
Oh, most definitely. The beginning angler will discover that not only is it ease of use and everything else, but they're comfortable to fish with for the beginning angler. There's not hardly anything there that'll mess up, tear up, break, or anything else. They're very user friendly. Very, very easy to fish with, very comfortable to fish with, and by far, when you have a day of fishing for a beginning angler where he can have a piece of equipment that doesn't foul on him often or anything like that, it just makes it that much more enjoyable.
Yeah, and like I said, folks, if you or someone you know of is getting into fishing, these things are very budget friendly. You can buy a very good quality combination for 30 to 40 bucks, and that'll include rod, reel, line, and so you have some money left over in your budget to even, throw some hooks, sinkers, or whatever else you want to throw in there. They're very easy to learn to cast. Majority of them are push-button operation, where you push the button, make the cast, and at the point of release, you just release a button and the line goes. You don't have to worry about backlash or loops or some of the other problems that you worry about in some of the other classes we'll be talking about this morning. But, at the same time, it does have its limitations. You're not going to see these for used in large fish applications or when you're casting heavy lures, or in some cases even when you're casting extremely light lures. It takes a minimum amount of weight to pull the line from the spool. These things are often called pop cans because they have a hole. The reel is totally enclosed, but they have a hole in the end of it that the line goes in and out of. And, in some cases they resemble a pop can. But this is definitely, don't confuse this. Some of these reels are pretty high quality. They'll last you quite a while, and they'll certainly get you into fishing and grow a little bit with you before you have to worry about making another purchase. Growing up, I can remember having dozens of these things laying around our particular garage that we used to crappie fish with hooks, sinkers, and corks. And I would dare to say these things have probably caught more fish combined than any other type of reel that we've used in modern times. So don't be afraid to look at these, especially in the beginning for an intro angler. They have a lot of applications, and they're just an excellent way to get someone started. The next segment we'll talk about spinning reel. It's very, very common to see spinning reels nowadays. They have a wide variety of uses. They have a wide variety of sizes, and even a wide variety of price points. You typically see spinning reels in freshwater application anywhere holding 2 pound up to about 20, 30, in some cases even 40 pound line, but that's stretching it a bit. They are very easily classified as a large selection of reels. They have a pretty easy on the budget because they have a lot of price points. There's a wide selection of lines and line capacities available. Very smooth operation, and these would be categorized on my list as the second easiest to use. It requires a minimum amount of experience to operate. They have a lot of multi-species applications, huge flexibility with different rod selections, and can be used to cast very light lures. This is probably classification of reel that will cast the lightest lure of the three main classes we'll talk about today. What's your thoughts on spinning, Brian?
Definitely spinning reels will throw the lightest lures, use the lightest line. These are, as far as I'm concerned, spinning reels, they are wonderful for panfish, light freshwater applications. And, on the far other end of it, you'll find spinning reels that are a very large size. You'll see guys running around with them with these big spinning reels sitting on their surf rods, sitting on 10, 12, 14-foot rods. And they use these, of course, for striper fishing. Of course, here, lately there's been a big craze of the spoonbill thing up on Grand River and up in that area. A lot of guys use these types of reels for that. But yes, these are definitely probably have the widest variety of applications as far as line size and rod size and lure size.
Yeah, these can be easily identified, folks, because they have a visible spool that the line is to hold on to. What you have is an orbiting piece around a fixed spool, and that actually wraps the line on the spool. That also creates one of the spinning reel's major downfalls, is because the line enters the spool at 90 degrees. As far as brute power, you don't have as much power with a spinning reel as you would have with a casting reel. But like Brian says, they will throw the lightest lures possible in many applications. And these things are over 100 years old. The design is anyway, and they just keep growing in quality and quantity. Spinning reels is probably the largest class of reels available on the open market. If you walk into a sporting goods shop, probably the vast majority of the reels you're going to look at are spinning reels. There's so much variety out there that it's just there's one to fit every classification and one to fit every situation that you're going to be using. And also, these things are very pinpoint accurate. Once you learn to feather your finger up against the spool when you're throwing the lure, it's very easy to hit a very small target a long ways away over a period of just learning how to cast the spinning reel. There are some things that you need to be aware of. Some of the downfalls are you need to be aware of how you put the line on the reel. There's some ways that you can actually spool the line on the reel that the reel will perform better, and there's actually don'ts, ways that you spool the line on the reel that will actually make the reel perform worse. So you need to understand which one you need to look at, how you need to turn that spool, how you relieve the line twist. This is the biggest thing that spinning reels have against them, is they can create a lot of line twist on the spool, and boy, that can really cause you problems when you start casting. You can get loops in the spool, loops in the line, and it can really ruin your day. So there is a little more maintenance, a little more handling, a little more care and attention involved in operating these reels than there is a casting reel. But at the same time, there's some huge advantages over a spin cast reel as far as light lures, pinpoint accuracy, and just a wide variety of line applications and sizes that you can purchase these things at. What else you'd like to throw in there, Brian?
Oh, well, definitely. That has got to be probably the most versatile reel out there that the fisher person can pick up and learn to use. What you can do with this reel is basically endless. It'll do everything that a spin cast reel will do, and it'll do a lot of things that a bait cast reel can't do. But the amount of applications, the versatility, as far as I'm concerned, they cannot be beat. They require just a hair bit more to maintain and to use than the spin cast reels, but by far the advantages of that outweigh the differences by far.
Yeah, and folks, also you can go to my website, justfish.com, and what I do is I put videos. I'll put some videos on there to show you how to maintain and care, and even how to spool these things up. Recommendations for doing that. Also, we'll show you the three basic differences in the spin cast, spinning, and bait casting, so you can actually see on a video what these fishing equipment looks like, and that way you can easily identify it once you walk into any sporting goods store. The spinning reel, like Brian said, is probably the most versatile of any of the ones that we'll discuss today. You can actually just, the sky's the limit. You can get them to throw, 60th, 80th ounce jigs, or you can get them to throw 5-ounce bullet sinkers and big long jigs. So it's just a question of picking the right size, matching it to the right rod, and perhaps that's something we'll need to talk about here a little bit. A spin cast rod, a spinning rod, and a casting rod all match to the three different types of reels that we'll be talking about today. A spin cast rod usually has the second largest diameter eyes, the full length of the rod. A spinning rod usually has the largest diameter eyes all the way through the length of the rod. A casting rod usually has the smallest diameter eyes through the length of the rod. And this is because of the way the line feeds or comes off the reel. In a spin cast, it comes off in rings, but the rings are fairly small in diameter, so the eyes don't have to be as large than they do in a spinning reel. A spinning reel, you take the diameter of the spool, and the line feeding off that spool is going to give you somewhere in the neighborhood of the range of the diameter of the spools going through the rod guides. And that's why these eyes have to be bigger. If they weren't as bigger in diameter, they'd actually restrict the line and i.e. shorten your distance to casting. So that's why you see different size eyes on different rods, and you need to match that. Also, it's how the reel fits on the rod. A spin cast reel, the center of gravity is slightly above the reel, and the reels are the guides are facing upwards. On a spinning reel, the center of gravity is further away from the reel, and when you're actually fishing a spinning outfit, the eyes are pointing downward or toward the water. So there's some things you need to be aware of when selecting this rod and reel combination. Don't put a spinning reel on a casting rod, because you're not going to be able to cast very far at all with it. It's that the diameter of those eyes are so small that it's just going to choke your line down where you have no distance. And same thing when you're looking at a spin cast rod. The diameter of the eyes won't be large enough to allow you to cast any distance. So you need to match a spinning rod up with a spinning reel, a casting rod with a casting reel, and so on and so forth. That's really what you need to look at. The length of the rod has a lot to do with the distance you cast, the weight of the lure that you can hold, the size of the fish, the power you have on that rod and reel combination. The rod is actually the working part of the combination as far as fighting the fish. The rod's what fights the fish. The reel just holds the line and hopefully keeps your line from breaking with the drag mechanism. But the rod's the actual point that does the work. Don't you agree with that, Brian?
Yeah. Without proper guides, without proper guide spacing and proper guide height, they just don't work nearly as well, and they're not really designed to function that way. Not only we'll be able to tell this when you're casting, if you actually hook a good fish and get a good bow on the rod, and you've got a spinning rod mounted on, spinning reel mounted on a casting rod, you're going to put a lot of strain on that rod in a direction that it is not designed really to bend that far. When these rods are made, these guides are wrapped on what's known as a spline. The spline denotes the direction of bend of the rod.
Yeah, the backbone of the rod.
The backbone of the rod. And if you've got a reel sitting underneath a rod that's meant to bend down instead of up, then you could run into some serious problems here.
Yeah, you can actually torch one of these rods fairly quickly if you use it outside its design parameters. So be careful and try and understand how these things are gauged. And how they're gauged as far as what weight line you need to put on them, what type of reel or rod, all that type of stuff. So be careful in selecting a rod and reel combination. You really want to try to make it match within some parameters. What you're going to be fishing for, what you're going to be throwing, and how you're going to be throwing it. And that pretty much takes us through spinning gear. Man, there's a lot to discuss in spinning gear. And folks, send me an email if you don't understand any of this, or if you want some additional information, feel free. We answer a lot of emails, and we don't mind a bit. The third category we're going to talk about is casting gear. Casting gear is very common around the world. It's extremely common in freshwater applications. This is probably most commonly associated with bass fishing and in some respects catfish fishing. It is usually designated as you have a rotating spool and the rest of the reel is fixed with the exception of the handle. It has a lot of power. It is a winch as far as the power that it's able to produce. It easily can go up to lines, the 60-pound test line. It's used for large catfish, winch and bass out of heavy cover. A lot of different applications. It has a large selection of reel sizes, very wide price point, very smooth operation, extremely powerful fish fighting ability. This is the reel that if you're going after big fish or fishing heavy cover, this is the reel you want to be throwing, folks, because this is a fishing reel on steroids. It does have the best winching power of anything out there. It does have a multi-species application. There are large sizes available that have high-capacity reels, a huge flexibility for different rod selections, and it will probably, if taken care of, last as long, if not longer, than perhaps you're going to be fishing. Some of these reels today are up in the $200, $300, $400, $500 range, and they have advanced things like ceramic bearings, magnetic braking systems. They're just endless of ways that these things have come about in the last 10 years. And this is without a doubt the most specialized fishing gear out there. And it is really the gear of choice in most applications, especially for bass fishermen. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, most definitely. I mean, you're looking at a reel that's progressed tenfold from what it was back in the, even you go back just as far back as the early 80s. Look at how far they've come since then. Back in the days when we were throwing plain old ambassadors, FUM educated and all this good stuff. Now we've got reels that super stopper, anti-reverse. There's no handle rock, thank goodness.
Yeah,
I have many a busted knuckles off of one of them things.
Toast your biscuits. And everything else.
I mean, they do everything but catch the fish for you, folks. I mean, they're literally a sports car that you got sitting on a rod.
Yeah, these reels though. Even though we've come a long way in the last 10, 15 years as far as advancements in braking system, we've gone from the old mechanical brakes to the magnetic brakes to magnetic active brakes. It's just, there's a lot of new things that's been improved on in the last 10 years. But these reels are still the most difficult to throw and master. Now, I say that, but I also need to say that all you need to do is spend a little time with these things, and you can master them quite easily. It doesn't take 20 years of on the water experience to master these things. Spend a little money, get you a good reel, get you one that's got at least 3 or 4 or 5 bearings on it. Buy a name brand, and these things are really designed not to throw anything lighter than a 1/4 ounce, especially when you're starting out. You put this reel on a 6.5 foot medium light rod rated for 17 or 20, and you can throw a 1/4 ounce lure a long ways with it, with a full spool on the reel. You start getting less than a 1/4 ounce, and that's where some of the troubles start. That's where you can really get into a professional overrun situation, or a nightmare, however you want to talk about it.
Yeah, whatever you want to call it.
It can be a challenge, but at the same time, for the angler who's beginning into it or the angler who wants to take the next step, this is by far the reel you must learn to master in order to have the best possible chance of pulling a big fish or a fish out of heavy cover. A spinning reel is not going to do it. A spin cast reel is not going to do it. This bait casting reel is really what you need. It's the workhorse when you go after the big dogs or when you're fishing heavy cover. I fish Lake Fork quite a bit, and when I go down there and fish, all of my reels are casting reels, and all the reels that I have spooled up with a braided line. I night fish 99% of the time down there. I night fish. And so I have braided line on all these reels, folks. And I can tell you from personal experience, from the mid-90s, late 90s on, when braided line first hit the market, my fish catching percentage on large fish, and I'm talking fish over 9 pounds, went up dramatically by fishing a combination of braided line on these casting spools. It was very common for me and a buddy of mine I fished down there with to get 20 and 25 busted on a regular occasion. It wasn't anything new. But when we went to the braided line, it's a little different story. We were able to hog these big fish out of that heavy cover. Like I said, our fish catching ratio went up dramatically. So look at these things when you're trying to decide what you're trying to fish for, what the conditions are. And as we've talked about in recent history, these things are like tools in a toolbox. You need to be able to select the tool that you're going to be used that's most appropriate for the conditions you're going to use it. Brian, I'm sure that's information that our listeners will enjoy. Thanks for coming on the show.
Anytime.
And, tell us how you like the show and how we can improve it. or if you have a suggestion, a topic, let us know, and we'll try to put a show together that will help you out. We do have some limited advertising space available. If you'd like your products listed on the show, or if you had any suggestions we'd like to know more about Just Fish Outdoors, or anything we can help with, just drop us a line at justfishoutdoors@justfish.com. Or you can send us a note on Facebook as well at Just Fish Outdoors. Folks, get out and enjoy one of the many lakes or streams we are blessed to have. Thanks for listening, and be sure to catch us next week at this same time. This is Dale York, host of Just Fish Outdoors, saying we'll catch you later.